So today we are at the Lavender Library here in Sacramento. We discovered this place right around the time that we moved here, and we're thrilled to see an LGBTQ collection right here in our backyard. And officially, this is called the Lavender Library Archives and Cultural Exchange. And it was founded almost 20 years ago now by 17 local Sacramento community members as a research and information institution for the city's LGBTQIA community. And I'm joined by Trevor Neeley, one of the library's board members and its intern coordinator. They've been working for the library since January 2016, when you told us you were the key pickup. You were
backup key holder.
Backup key holder.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Just for a few months, the backup key holder.
And then you became so much more. Then we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Trev, for taking some time out to talk to us about the library.
Oh yeah, thank you for being here.
So, in the broadest of terms, what is this library's mission for the community?
I think we have, several missions, depending on which volunteer you ask, maybe. We are all volunteer run, I think. But I think our core mission is creating a space where people can meet each other, get to know one another, and also get to know their community, both in a regional sense and in a national sense, and maybe an international sense as well. In terms of exploring their identities, exploring their queer identities specifically. All of our materials are LGBTQ focused or written by LGBTQ authors or directors in the case of DVDs, of course, or they incorporate the identities or experiences of queer folks. So I think it's a space, I got involved, I don't know if this is a question for later, but I got involved because my mission in this space is to provide a space for people to explore themselves and to potentially, for me, literature is what got me to come out to myself and then to others. It was the first thing that, helped me to make sense of my reality after at least 7 or 8 years in the closet of knowing for sure that I was queer, but not telling anybody about it. So that's my main mission, is just to help keep the space open, being all volunteer run. We do have a pretty small group of dedicated volunteers who help keep the space open so that people can have a space to explore themselves and get to know their community a little bit through queer literature.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask what some of the books were that helped you?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I came out in college in my senior year at UC Davis from taking an intro queer studies class through the women's studies minor that I was doing with my cultural history major. And some of the most influential works were written by Eve Sedgwick, Gloria Anzaldúa, Michael Warner, Monique Fatigue, various scholars that people would maybe point to as the founders of queer theory as a discipline. For me, it was about getting the academic theory background behind queer identity. I think I've always been a read-write learner, so I think I really needed to read and write about my experience before I could fully come to grips with it and be honest with myself and others. So it was that, in conjunction with getting involved at the LGBT Resource Center on campus at Davis. And just kind of exploring myself through literature primarily, I think, is what led me to being able to come out and get involved in queer community. So that's what my main goal, my mission here is to create a space where people can read about themselves.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean that the library is also an archive and cultural exchange?
Like I said, I mean, it's not just a place where you can come to read. I mean, we have people coming through here on a regular basis who aren't even necessarily members, so they don't have the ability to check materials out or circulating materials, but they still come here for events. They still come here to meet people. So many of my good friends are also volunteers here, whether we met before or we met, through the library since I started volunteering here. It's a cultural exchange because people are able to share of their cultural identity with one another. And tell each other what that means to them and bond over that. I think once you understand a person's cultural background, then you can really connect. So I think that the cultural exchange part is definitely around our events, our support groups, our parties, just our getting together and being here and queer together still. And then also to develop resiliency with one another is really important. I think the library helps people to do that in community with others of like mind or of similar identities. And the archives definitely is an important part of our work. Many people who come to the library on a regular basis maybe don't even realize that we have an archive just a few blocks away here where we keep ephemera and historical objects, materials, papers. We keep personal papers of prominent community members. We I mean, we have all sorts of interesting stuff in the archives, and the community is able to engage with it either by getting involved and contacting us and asking for an archives tour, or coming to events where we have on display materials from our archive, like the Sacramento Archives Crawl. Every October we participate in that, and we have a guest archivist curate the collection that they want to, in theme with the, I don't know if you've been to the Sac Archives Crawl, but it's an awesome event put on by the state archives, and we are always participating in that, and we, share a bit of our local queer history through actual engagement with the materials. So our archive is a great way to, I think, document our history in the Sacramento region. That's the main goal of the archive, I think.
So for those on the video, they could see this massive collection back here behind us. Mm-hmm. How does the library curate its collection?
That's a great question. Well, the influx of new volunteers has led to an influx of new board members, which has led to a series of projects, I think, to curate the collection in a meaningful way and in a strategic way in terms of space management. Part of that has been the creation of the collection development policy, which was recently ratified by the board. Our strategic plan, including our 5-year plan that was recently passed by the board after a lengthy process of doing strategic planning, guided by Temple Kirk from the Gender Health Center and one of our board members here. We're also currently working on drafting a collection development policy for our archive, so we can have more formalized processes for intake of items and maintenance of the archival space. So I would say it's curated in a strategic way, and then in the reality of the situation, which is that our space is limited, and our volunteer base is limited. But we in our weeding process, we're very careful. We don't weed out very many materials, and when we do, it's usually because it's not LGBT related in any manner. And it's just kind of kept up through the years of having a core of volunteers who really care about the accessibility of this literature, I think.
You've mentioned taking part in the Sacramento Archive Crawl. What are some of the other events that the library is participating in to kind of get the word out about the library and to be kind of out in the community?
Well, we participate at the Sac State Pride often, at the Sierra College Rainbow Days, their version of Pride, the Davis Pride, the City of Davis Pride in Central Park in Davis, the Archives Crawl. I mean, we were at Earth Day this year. We were at the APIXI conference at Sac State, the Asian Pacific Islander queer conference that they hosted. I mean, most places we're invited. We pitch it to the board and we just say, if we're invited, do we want to participate or not? We were at the, I think it's called International Peace Day recently. We had some volunteers doing outreach there. Personally, I'm not at everything, so I don't have it. Maybe I should have had a list here. But we do. We have a lot of things we participate in. The Earth Day seemed like it was a lot of fun. We were glad to be. This year was our first time participating in outreach at Earth Day, and that was pretty cool. It was interesting to be at an event, I think, that wasn't completely like LGBTQ focused. Yeah. But certainly, queer folks care about the environment too. So I'm sure there were a lot of queer folks in attendance, even though it wasn't explicitly a queer event. So we had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, very cool that you're invited to that, just to kind of get the word out to a slightly different.
And we've even had community organizations and events reach out to us and offer for partnership in terms of fundraising. I mean, we had the Shine Cafe in February. They do their every other week open mic event, and every month they pick a different nonprofit to sponsor and give the proceeds to. So I think the month of February was our month. We got the proceeds from the Shine Cafe open mic event. So shout outs to the Shine Cafe, good people over there. And that's a great way for us to do fundraising. We're a nonprofit, all volunteer run organization. It's really a community effort to keep the space open.
Mm-hmm. What events do you have here that are both book centric and perhaps community centric?
Yeah, we've had, so many author release parties. When there's a book release going on, we have the Eclectic Trash Book Club that meets every other Thursday. That's actually met for longer than the library has been existing. It's a fiction mostly, I think, LGBT book club. We have a new book club called Ellipses, which is a radical queer and trans book club that I think focus more on academic and non-fiction books. They meet every other Sunday. Tomorrow they'll be meeting. So yeah, every other Sunday we have ellipses. We have the Queer Authors Collective that has been meeting here and doing book readings as well. We have a new open mic series that's going to be starting, focused on queer people of color, mostly having a chance to share their comedy. We host the LGBTQ Latinx group here in town, the Sacramento LGBTQ Latinx Association, I think they're called. They're meeting here now. We have the Sacramento F to M support group that meets here, the Ambi bisexual support group that meets here. So we have a lot of ongoing, like, regular support groups that meet here, as well as some special events, like Dr. Gail Pittman from Sac City College does her book release parties here. We've had several local authors do book release parties, as well as we had our mural unveiling in March. We have a new mural on the wall, on our back wall here at the library, that we partnered with the California Endowment and the Gender Health Center to create. It's a beautiful mural. If you haven't had a chance to check it out,
I didn't know that was back there. We'll have to go look at that.
Yeah, it commemorates the life and death of China Gibson, and and it brings, I think, highlights for the community the problem of anti-trans violence and specifically trans women of color, the violence that trans women of color disproportionately face in the contemporary United States. So it's meant to bring awareness to that, and also to celebrate the accomplishments of the Black Lives Matter movement. Who I personally, would stand in solidarity with this year in not attending Pride, and standing in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter Sacramento chapter, as well as the Tubman House and the Gender Health Center and other organizations, and by also. I think there's actually a lot of organizations that are standing in solidarity and maybe saying, Pride hasn't been representative of them in recent years, so they won't be participating this year. Mm-hmm. But calling for hopefully future collaborations in which we can have LGBTQ spaces and community centers that really do center marginalized voices and the voices of people of color and trans people in particular.
As these kind of issues come up, certainly trans issues and persons of color in the community issues have risen up quite a lot over the last couple of years. How does the library work to evolve itself to address those?
I mean, it's an intentional effort, I think, every day. Every board meeting making that an important piece of the meeting and talking about what are we doing to intentionally include more people and to think about the ways that the spaces historically maybe disproportionately served lesbians and gays and white people, and how we can be more strategic with who our audience is. We're trying to expand our social media presence as much as possible. Our social media presence on Facebook and Instagram has expanded dramatically, but not so much on Twitter, but we're working on that as well. And trying to invite speakers of color and trying to invite trans folks to lead events or to participate in events. I mean, it's definitely, it depends who you ask, I would say. But taking intentional steps and making it like an everyday thing to think about inclusion in your space. It can be things, I think, as symbolic or as simple as putting a sign on your bathroom that says it's an gender inclusive restroom. I mean, it's a single occupancy restroom, but it certainly wouldn't need to be gendered. And it certainly doesn't need to say, that it's for men and women, because we know that there are people who are not men or women. So I think small symbolic acts and then larger acts of it, purchasing of materials that are inclusive or of different identities. Authors, we recently got the Pinkerton grant again, the local Pinkerton grant for book purchasing. And with both of our last two Pinkerton grants, I believe we've specifically purchased about $750 worth of books. I think pretty much all books, maybe some DVDs, by authors of color. So trying to expand the inclusion in terms of the materials on the shelf, I think, is primary for the board, as well as doing intentional efforts to expand the inclusivity of our events and support groups and things like that. Mm-hmm. But it's an ongoing effort, and it will be.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because, like you said, it's a day-by-day kind of...
Yeah, you never really get to a point where, okay, now we've reached equity, or now we've reached, diversity, and, exactly. The community's always changing.
Why is this library important to the LGBTQI community of Sacramento, but also the city itself?
I mean, I don't know. I can't really necessarily speak for the city.
Speak for the entire city.
For me, it's just important to have a space that's free of corporate sponsorship. It's great to have a space that is truly radically free. I think where you can come together to explore radical ideas, or the radical ideas within yourself, or the radical notion that you can resist the system yourself in a space here, just by creating art, or meeting someone new, or attending a new event, or feeling empowered enough to host your own event, or feeling empowered enough to speak up at the open mic and share your artistry, or to do a book reading from your latest work. I think for me, the importance is just creating a space that's truly, I think, as much as possible free of corporate influence, and especially in the kind of late stage capitalism that we're currently in, I would say. Yeah.
How do you define radical when you use that term?
I would define radical as in against the status quo, or not normative in nature, or not unorthodox, I suppose.
Cool. Back to the books, because it's always back to the books.
Yes.
What are some of the more popular books here? What are the things that people kind of
It's interesting. We have a lot of community members who will just take out a whole section of a shelf at a time, and they just kind of work their way through the alphabet and read all the fiction. I mean, when can you get enough fiction, right? I definitely sometimes just love coming in here and spending the Saturday just reading a new book. But I would say, the academic stuff in the nonfiction section is actually surprisingly popular. Certainly, the erotic DVDs is our most popular in terms of the number of items circulating quickly. We have, what would be the most popular texts, I wonder? The new children's section has been a huge success. We just developed a children's section in the last, I think, about a year ago, and it's been seeing really high rates of circulation. Our young adult section and our new book section, I think, has had high rates of circulation, which shows that the community is wanting new materials that maybe better reflect their experiences and identities. So yeah, the Overflow book sale is popular, pretty much always, because it allows for people to engage with the literature without having to necessarily pay the membership dues, or just to not have to think about when you're going to return your book or call in and renew it. So the Overflow book sale is popular. The erotic novels are pretty popular.
Yeah, the Overflow book sale it's hard to get books for $1 or $2, and you just get to have them.
Yeah, and you just expand your own personal collection a little bit.
And you mentioned coming in on a Saturday and just reading a book. What do you like to read?
Oh, I have read a lot more nonfiction and academic, historical monographs than anything. Having done, history grad school, you just have to read a lot of nonfiction, a lot of monographs. But I enjoy novels. Since finishing my master's in 2014, I've been reading a lot more fiction, I would say. So that's been good. I enjoy just grabbing a random novel off the shelf and just kind of exploring that world a little bit. But my all-time favorites are definitely in the nonfiction section, tend to be historians, tend to be microhistory. That tends to be where I go. Although lately I've been exploring the YA section. That's a lot of fun too. So yeah.
What's the best part for you in terms of the role that you play here?
Oh, my favorite part is just working my 12 to 3 on Saturdays shift. Just running the circ desk and making sure everyone's tended to and that people are able to check out their materials and reading. I first got involved here because I just wanted to prioritize reading more fiction after grad school. So exploring a new novel and meeting new people definitely has been my favorite part. I mean, half the people I go to brunch with on the weekends are volunteers at the library, so the social aspect is big too, I think. Met a lot of great people here.
You say you walked in the door because you were looking to read more fiction after grad school. When you did that, did you think it would go as far as it did, to that you're a volunteer, that you're on the board, that you're the intern coordinator? Did that just kind of evolve organically?
I think, just by necessity, yeah, I did not think I would become the secretary and the intern coordinator and the Saturday key holder. But we just have a small core group of volunteers, and when something needs to get done, we have a good group of people who step up and get it done. So, yeah, I didn't see all this coming. I'm not sure how long I'll be on the board necessarily, but I hope to continue my Saturday volunteer shift for the foreseeable. I told my roommate, as long as I live in Sacramento, I'll probably volunteer at the Lavender Library. So it's for the foreseeable, for sure. But the other stuff is good too. Getting the experience of continuing to lecture in the community on behalf of the library to share not only what we do, but also some of our history. For the heteros out there who maybe don't know it, but also for queer folks who maybe want to connect more with their history, but didn't have a chance within their Common Core curriculum to learn queer history.
Sure.
I mean, I certainly didn't learn queer history until almost grad school, or probably upper division undergraduate. And even then, survey history courses at the college level don't exactly prioritize LGBTQ experiences. Yeah.
What kind of lectures does the library go out and give? Because I know you go out and you give lectures. We talked to the president of the board, who's sitting way over behind us at the circulation desk.
Running the circ desk.
He goes out and is also doing lectures. What kind of programming does that put out into the community?
I mean, first and foremost, we want to share that we're here. We're queer, and that there's a space for those in the audience who maybe don't know it. I know for me, I drove by a lot or walked by and never came into this space for years. I just knew the library existed, but I didn't always, I didn't walk in until two and a half years ago. So first and foremost, we talk a little bit about, what is the library? Where are we? What do we do? But then we usually go into kind of a nonlinear look at the 20th century and some of like the identity formation and like how gay and lesbian and homosexual and where these words come from and how they came to be. And specifically in the United States, we tend to focus. Chris and I kind of worked, mostly Chris, worked on developing a kind of standard LGBTQ history lecture. And I think we're both Americanists, so it's pretty much all U.S. specific. But it focuses on resistance, identity formation, community formation. We try to kind of jump around in terms of space and time a bit to disrupt any notions of like linear progress models that tend to flood historiography a little too much. So yeah, it's an engaging. I try to make it an engaging lecture as much as possible, and not just a lit review. But when you're given, a lot of the organizations in the community who want us to speak will be like, "Oh, you got 45 minutes, to give us a history of LGBTQ people in America." So it's like, oh, okay, so everything from my entire master's thesis, into 45 minutes. Like, let's do it. So I think as historians often have to curate. I mean, that's kind of the fundamental tenet of postmodernism, I think, in the history discipline, is that everything's curated, right? And there's not necessarily any one universal truth. So it's always going to be kind of what the lecturer wants to convey or what message they want to get across or what they want to convince the people of. For me, that's most often making sure that we can destabilize any linear progress models in terms of like thinking about progress as though, this is where we've achieved it. And making sure people realize that, like, you might be able to point to one thing at one point in time and say, in that space and time, that's progress. But is progress happening? Is it inevitable? And is it always happening? And does it end? These are important questions that I would like my students to engage with.
This is the 20th anniversary year. What's going to happen to help celebrate the library at this great milestone?
Well, we're hoping to get continue the positive community response that we've gotten. A big day of giving, we got a massive community response and exceeded our goal by over $1,000 of fundraising. With the mural release party in March, we saw huge attendance that we didn't necessarily expect. And more of our support groups are more full every day. So we're hoping to get good attendance this fall at the commemorative events, probably 2 events to commemorate our 20-year anniversary. This fall, we're going to be hosting like a barbecue crafternoon type event here at the space and in our parking lot. And then potentially on the same day or the day before, we're going to do we're currently looking into doing like at a bar, like renting the space of a bar and having more of a party in terms of drinking. We wanted to have like a sober event, of course, to to be all ages and inclusive of folks who maybe don't participate in drinking or in those types of environments. And then we also want to have like another event at the bar in recognition that a lot of queer community has been found in drinking spaces. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good historical literature on it too. A lot of queer folks have met and congregated in bars. So we're keeping that tradition alive as well with a celebration in the fall. Yeah, to commemorate our 20-year anniversary, both a sober, family-oriented event and maybe a nighttime party at the bar. Excellent. And that's probably going to be all in October. And folks can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We're just at SacLace on all of our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So folks can follow us on there as well as lavenderlibrary.com, our website, to learn more about that as things progress, because we're in the beginning stages right now. And if anyone out there who's been involved with the library, who wants to get involved, or who wants to get involved with the library, wants to get involved with planning the 20th anniversary, we're open to it. It's gonna take a village, but it's gonna be a party. We're looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, Trev, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Tell us about the library and everything.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
So, Trev, show us around the Lavender Library to give people an idea of what we've been talking about.
Absolutely, yeah. So here we are in the entryway of the Lavender Library. We've got our kind of community resources area here where we keep various flyers and things for upcoming events and support groups as well. Not just the events and support groups that take place here in the library, but also some external events and some of our community partners, like the Gender Health Center and the Hmong Queer Schwab group and other groups in the community. We've also got a community resources area here behind you where we're always giving away, free condoms and other materials that people might need, film festival schedules, support services as far as mental health providers and things like that. And then we have periodicals like our local Outward, of course, here in our front area. We have our Books for Prisoners box there that we, part of our Prisoner Solidarity Network, is having a project to collect books to donate to prisoners. And then all throughout this front area, you have our Overflow book sale. Actually, anytime we're open, we have the ongoing Overflow book sale here for suggested donations of $1 and $2. So quite a bit of materials here.
We love the Overflow book sale.
Yeah. Yeah, whenever you see books outside the door, in the front, on the street side here, and then books all in this area, this is all just things we have duplicate copies of. Mm-hmm. And we don't have, space is always an issue when you're a all volunteer-run nonprofit organization, and also when you're a library, and we're both, of course. So space is an issue. So we don't keep a lot of duplicates unless it's a really noteworthy material. So we mostly put duplicates here in the Overflow book sale, and then we also do parking lot book sales every few months as well, which we have one coming up. Well, probably by the time this airs, though, it probably won't be coming up anymore. But next weekend, the first weekend of June, we're going to be doing an Overflow book sale in the parking lot here. But the book sale is always ongoing here in the front area. And then everything, back here is more traditional library stuff, so we can definitely take a look at all of that too. Here we have the information desk or circulation desk where community members who are members of the library can check out materials, or non-members can ask questions about them, about the neighborhood, or purchase books from the Overflow book sale. We have usually our calendar up here, as well as other support group flyers. We host the national chapter, the Sacramento chapter of the national support group AMBI, which is a bisexual support group for bisexuals and their loved ones, I believe. We also host an F2M group, Queer Crafternoons on Sundays. So we can talk more about all of the different events and support groups that we host. But this is a great place to get the information on all that. And then here we have our special collections. So much of the materials here in the special collection are rare first edition type of stuff. A lot of really older materials, like stuff even dating back to the 1880s, I think is some of our oldest stuff. So, of course, like most libraries, this whole section is not in circulation. Nothing in this section would be in circulation, but it's for in-library research purposes for the most part. I mean, we even have some first edition, like Anne Bannon's and Mary Jane Meeker's and like pulp fiction novels that in the 1950s were selling millions of copies. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty cool area here in the special collections. We just ask that people, maybe put on gloves for certain materials, for handling of certain materials.
Sure, yeah.
And then follow us back here. From here at the 8 on the wall, all the way going back, we have our materials in circulation. So everything here, we have our non-erotic DVDs, or just our DVD section here, in circulation to members. And then everything back here is in circulation to members as well. So we have our large fiction section, which goes from here all the way back. This is all fiction here. Most of our materials are actually donated by community members. So it has tended to skew gay and lesbian, but we are trying to expand the bisexual and transgender and other queer materials as much as possible, especially in recent years with grant funding and things like that. And then here we have our 2 aisles of nonfiction. Our classification system here is like a kind of loosely based off the Dewey Decimal System, but of course more identity-based to suit the needs of our community members, of course, because we are an explicitly LGBTQ library, and all materials in the library incorporate the identities or experiences of LGBTQ folks in some way. If it's too straight, we just kind of send it away. We reroute it out. We donate it to, the Goodwill or to a women's resource center if it's feminist in nature, but maybe not LGBTQ, which, of course, can be dependent upon what the decisions of our library administrative committee are, because, for some folks, you'd say if it's feminist, it's also queer, by default. So it kind of depends on your perspective, but it does have to be written by a queer author or incorporate in some manner like the identities and experiences of queer folks to stay in our library. So that's the books in holding here. Back here we have our one of our most popular sections of the library. We have the erotic DVDs back there that are in circulation to members who are 18 and older only. And then we have on the wall here, this is our periodicals wall. We have quite a bit of periodicals in our holdings here. None of the periodicals are in circulation. They're just for in-library research. We have things ranging from nationwide periodicals to more local stuff. Like we have, I think, pretty much the whole series of Mom Guess What. We also have pretty much the whole series of Out Magazine and The Advocate, as well as smaller publications. And we've got quite a bit of Curve. We've got just a whole lot of periodicals, really. And then over here we have the newest section of the library. Just here, we have the children's section of the library. We just got a donation of toys and stuffed animals, which we're going to be putting here in this section. We also got a grant from the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence in San Francisco to do a multi-part queer drag queen story time. So we did the first one of those in March. We're going to do 2 more, I think 2 or 3 more coming up for drag queen story time. And that really is featuring our new children's section, which has been very popular. Actually, I think about half the materials in the children's section are checked out currently. We also have our young adult section right there next to the children's section. And then here on the wall, we have our new books and magazines, books mostly, actually. So this would be things that are like brand new, that board members have requested that we purchase, or that authors have left because they've done a reading, or we have several local authors who have done their book release parties here at the library. Like, for example, Dr. Gail Pittman from Sac City College has done her book release parties here for this book, for example, When You Look Out the Window. As well as recently we had Donovan James come through and share, I think last week or the week before, come through and share his work. And this is pretty regular here. We have authors do book release parties here, just to kind of talk about their book and share the book with the community. We had Dr. Stoner from Sac State come in and do a book reading recently from his Cobra Killer novel. So lots of good stuff here in the library. The only things I think I didn't mention is we have the staff room back there, and we have a gender-inclusive restroom as well back there that's open to the community.
Fantastic.
That's kind of the whole tour, I think.
Awesome. Thanks for showing us around.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.